some more. And you will have also an opportunity to ask questions to our keynote speaker, Professor Tom Kelly, or just make some comments like Mahesh Chander from India just did, writing this in the chat box in your Zoom application. And he says, "Hi from India. Latvia looks so beautiful. Wish the conference should have been in person, not virtual." Of course, we have many different tools to be used online, but you also are always welcome here to Latvia. Anytime the world will open up again. But now, Professor Tom Kelly was yesterday also on our discussion panel, but today we will define globalization of digital advisory as tools and services which are potentially useful and usable in different contexts, in different parts of the world. So let's try to put together the things we've been talking today and see how they can be used in our particular cases and locations. And Professor Tom Kelly, Director of Knowledge Transfer from the Irish Agriculture and Food Development Authority. Welcome, Professor. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so if I just share my presentation, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah. I'll just get it into presentation mode.
Mm-hmm. Take your time.
Okay, now that should be better.
It is.
Okay, yeah, as said, I am the Director of Knowledge Transfer in TEAGASC. And I suppose with that, it gives me, I suppose, has been an opportunity for me over the last 10 years or so to influence the advance of digital technology and digital solutions within the Irish context. I've also been chairman of GFRAS, and I think GFRAS has embedded in its formation the objective of having some type of platform for the sharing of digital tools between advisors across Europe. So this is some of the context, and I suppose being involved in digitalization all my life in the advisory service and in vocational training is not much of an achievement, because over the last 35 years it has advanced a lot, but we have obviously the rate of change is so fast that we are quickly left behind if we do not move with those changes. The other context, as I mentioned, is that GFRAS has been a very strong supporter of digital technologies, and I think we learn a lot from each other within the GFRAS network in terms of how we can do things better using digital tools. So I will give you my perspective on the digital challenge and its opportunity. And I will give you a quick overview of the Fair Share project, and I'm conscious of the fact that we're a little behind time, and also that we have some workshops have already been held, and we've heard a little bit about the Fair Share project already. So in the context of this presentation, farm advisor equals extension agent, and extension service equals advisory services. So I do not differentiate for the purposes of the audience here today in those terminologies. So what do we mean by digitalization? And I think, yeah, from a very simplistic approach to the provision of tools and service electronically, we can move to, I think, the third bullet point on the screen, which is a more fundamental definition, which is changing existing ways of doing things to an ICT-based way of doing things. And I think this is where the real value proposition for advisory services is embedded. So there are two questions, and I think this conference and its two previous keynote speakers would have addressed both of them. The first question is, are digital technologies substitutes for farm extension activities? and maybe replace farm advisors altogether. So with, as we have heard with artificial intelligence and augmented reality and lots of other developments in that area, does this mean that advisory services are redundant in the future? And the alternative presentation, which John James, I think, would have favoured, that digital technologies will improve the efficacy and quality of extension services and strengthen farm advisors. And I'm certainly of the opinion that the second objective is the one that we deal with currently at the moment and for the foreseeable future, as we are dealt with so many challenges in terms of agricultural sustainability, environmental challenges, economic challenges, that this is really the approach that we should be taking and exploiting fully within our advisory services. So if we look very quickly at the global digitalisation drivers, and we see that there are 6 here that I've listed, and I suppose you can find these in any textbook or in any scientific paper published on this, and you could differentiate them into pull factors and push factors. And certainly the demand coming from the general society, the first bullet point there is, I think, a really strong one, that, you know, farmers are using services from lots of different points. They're involved in civil society, they're involved in their own communities, with their own families, and also they engage with a lot of other people other than agricultural extension people. So this is a huge driver, and the challenge for ag extension and ag advisory services is to be up with that challenge and to meet it. So all of the other ones, I'm not going to go through them, but then this year, 2020, COVID-19, it's proven to be a giant leap in digital extension, mainly because the traditional ways, obviously, of dealing with farmers, of doing farm visits, of having demonstration farm meetings, etc., as we've heard throughout the conference, has changed rapidly. And this has I suppose, given the digital platforms and digital solutions a new, I suppose, energy in terms of how we will use those now and in the future in terms of being more efficient. So there's lots of actors within the digitalization. So I think fundamentally there's a very strong policy and funding. We see this now in the EU, in the new measures reforming the CAP. The digitalization is a major component of the agricultural knowledge and innovation support system. We see huge amount of information, really good publications coming from OECD and FAO on how to generate digital strategies and advance digital services to farmers. So farm organizations are also key actors and influencers. And they have certainly been strong in Europe in the context of laying down the ground rules for data ownership and sovereignty of data. And I think we have to engage with those farmer organizations and listen to what they're saying. Consumers obviously are also, I suppose, influencing it in terms of the demand for more and more information, particularly about products and the assurance of food, and nowadays even energy products. So I think as well in terms of education, most of our children are very well educated in digital tools, and they are leading us, many of our seniors, in how to exploit and use those digital tools, particularly in terms of social media communications and others. So I think last but not least on the list there are the public and private advisors. And I suppose we are responsible for supporting rapid and consistent change. And the example, and I think the responsibility of this from the advisory services point of view, rests with GFRAS and all of the advisory networks globally. So I want to just give you a little bit of data, because I think, you know, we are living in an era when we can do surveys very quickly and we can get back information very quickly. And we look at where we are today, and this is some data in an Irish context from a sample of about 700 farmers, which is completed in the last few weeks. And it's preliminary results, obviously, but we can see here that the advance of smartphones in terms of farmers' use of technology is huge. And in effect, very much influenced by the scale of farm. In Ireland, we would have a slightly larger farmers as dairy farmers and tillage farmers, whereas the other farms, dry stock and mixed enterprise farmers, would be slightly smaller. So there is a bit of discrepancy there in terms of the usage. But in terms of smartphone, this surprised me, and I really think there's something driving this, that the smartphone has actually surpassed the mobile phone usage, but equally it's the new way in which farmers connect with websites and with other online activities. They are not going to switch on a laptop or a desktop computer. They are much more likely to do it through their phone. So when we asked, the survey here asked the question in terms of, do you use WhatsApp? And again, we saw this disparity between the enterprises, but equally we saw that a huge proportion of people with smartphones, 73%, used WhatsApp as a means of communication. When we asked them in terms of how many of those were using WhatsApp with their advisor, the figure dropped from about 73% here to about 50% of the farmers. I'm just using another piece of data, which was again collected in the last few weeks, since July of this year, and it's an analysis of 480 clients in one GFRAS region. And it's a quality customer service survey that we use using the Net Promoter Score, which is a digital advisory tool that we use and has been used by other industries to more or less measure quality customer service. So I've just narrowed it down here to satisfied or very satisfied, not applicable, and dissatisfied in the table. And looking at our main activities within GFRAS, the farm visit, the office consultation, the phone, and more modern Zoom and Link. And remember, this is since COVID, so it was very much in use at the time. So we can see the huge level of satisfaction with phone, and if we take that the Zoom and Link as well, in terms of the number of participants who are interacting or happy to interact with us via those technologies. And just looking a little bit deeper into that questionnaire, we saw where again, looking at the satisfied, very satisfied versus dissatisfied with the various means of communications, the text message, WhatsApp group, social media, website, and email. So we can see that websites are being squeezed out, I think, in terms of their usage, and the levels of satisfaction with websites. It has to be a really high quality website to satisfy modern day farmers in terms of technology. That's not to decry our own website. I think it's useful, but farmers obviously prefer the more instant messaging, text messages, WhatsApp, and again, it may be something to do with the fact that this comes directly to their phone and is live when in terms of interacts with them in a live way. So I'd like to put up 4 here, what I call user assumptions that are often incorrect. And I think, or at least I have found that all advisors are not motivated and not enthusiastic to use digital tools and services. So, when I talk to others, particularly in my own organization, people who develop tools and softwares, who are very enthusiastic themselves, but they fail to realize that there is a major convincing or motivational job needed to get other advisors to use those tools. The second assumption is that all farmers value the digital services that are and are prepared to use them and pay for them if asked. I think, again, this is a dangerous assumption. And I think, again, without talking to those farmers, we should not be so quick to make that assumption. I think the digital tools cannot be designed without user engagement or involvement. And I suppose the last point here is that advisors who develop digital services themselves are the best people to support other users. And I found in my experience that is not the case. I think it's very much the case that they are a great help in an organization, but they sometimes are oversell and overpromise what the technology or what the solution will provide. So I just want to say a few words about FairShare. This project has adopted the FAIR principles of trying to ensure that digital technologies are findable, available, interoperable, reusable, and shareable among advisors. As mentioned before, it's a Horizon 2020 project, and it's 2 years in existence and 3 more years to go. So the main actions within the project are to develop a platform which allows advisors to upload digital tools and services, to support 40 different advisory services, to use this platform and improve their access and use of digital, and to fund the planning, adoption, translation, training, and motivational interactions of farmers and advisors. So this is a map of the participants in the program. There are 23 partners in the project, and there's an equal number of third parties connected to the project through GFRAS and SESN membership. So in terms of digital tools and services, in this particular project, we deliberately took a very broad approach to include all digital technologies that were used in advisory work. We also valued the advisor experience and motivation, and to share the knowledge, tools, and applications that were used by users. And this project isn't really about developing new tools. It's very much about sharing tools that are already in use by advisors across the European context. And I think that's a very important distinction. So we've categorized our tools into 3 broad headings: communications type tools, e-services, and organizational type tools. So within the communications tools, and we've seen a huge demand for these coming from during the COVID lockdown period, and basically in the last 6 months. And I think it's very, very astute that we actually broaden this out of just e-services into a more broader area. But we also see that there is interest in organization, in how do we manage, for example, client billing within one advisory service and use that knowledge into another one. And obviously within e-services, there's a huge amount of support there for lots of different applications connected to advisory, training, the performance of various activities and services on behalf of farmers. So this is with the digital inventory at the moment. We have 176 at the moment. This slide was made when we had 172. It's growing every day, and you can see the distribution of them here across Europe. So the profile of digital, so what have we learned from this collection of tools so far? Yeah, there's an abundance of tools which are generated, and services which are generated around freeware. So these are using freely available software, freely available applications like Google apps and smartphone apps, etc., that advisors have adopted and used, and they're using this to provide an added value service to their clients. There is also a lot of the tools that are designed, are bespoke, designed and programmed solutions for specific purposes. And some of those are done in-house in larger organizations, or they may be external provided by ICT companies and service providers, and in some instances by research organizations or the state. So an analysis of the 176 shows that there's about 17% of these are communication type tools, 80% are analytical benchmarking tools, and 3% are organization-stroke management tools. So within that inventory, we see that there's lots of applications, and even just to pick one here, the application of, this is an Irish one where advisors are helping farmers to design their grazing systems using Google My Maps. So, you know, it's a simple application, but here you can get information on how to use this. And certainly if you're coming at this from another location, and if Google My Maps is available to you, and you want to use it for other systems like designing an irrigation system or whatever, then this is an application might be of interest to you. So the experience from the inventory is that there's a good range of digital tools and services already there. It's growing all the time. It's difficult to get advisors themselves to upload the tools and services that they use. Sometimes they need a push. Sometimes they need an enticement to do this. We talk to them, and we can help them to do that within the project. Language is an issue, and COVID-19 again there has been a positive response, mainly because we really put up as many COVID solutions, communication solutions onto the screen, and introduced a new filter to find those quickly within the platform. So we have we're now moving into the second phase of this project, which is around increasing the digitalization of advisory services in Europe. And look, I have a lot of detail here on the slide. I'm not going to read through it, but it really revolves around selecting 40 different advisory case studies and helping them to resolve those solutions. So they will be selected, some from within the partner organizations and some through a public procurement process, which is about to start. So what do we do with these user cases? So these may be big or large. There could be maybe several hundred advisors, or there might be less than 10 advisors involved. So we establish the vision of where they want to go, develop a strategy, agree a roadmap of how they're going to get there, and then produce and agree a business case in terms of how does it stack up financially, in terms of their own expectations, etc., within the group. So this is more or less a co-design process around this, and we expect that they would implement the actions and introduce them into their normal annual business planning and review those actions and outcomes. So I think that the project really revolves around using the stakeholder engagement to create this climate of change and leverage the existing knowledge to create a common understanding of the best pathway forward, and to get motivation and support. So stakeholders, by this we mean farmers, advisors, ICT industry professionals, and this type of approach I think is really important to ensure that we are not just providing an easy fix solution for one section of stakeholders, and that we don't get buy-in or acceptance from others. So just a final question, and the question that I have for you, for everybody here and other networks especially, is could the fair share approach have a global potential? And why not, if the answer is no? So thank you very much, and Gora Mahagat.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Professor Kelly, we have some questions also from our platform. And the question is this: the fair share platform, after the end of the project, is it foreseen that GFRAS take it over? For example, by new GFRAS project management? Michael Kugler is asking.
Yes, this is a possibility. It's also a possibility that some other agency like DG Agri, the European agency, will fund it. It depends on the success of the platform.
Mm-hmm. Of the success, and what the success is depending upon.
Well, it's how well it's being used and the degree to which it is useful for advisors. Then there will be pressure coming on GFRAS, or potentially a good argument to be made by GFRAS to the EU Commission, for example, to find some funding, additional funding to keep this project, project going, to keep maybe not this project, but a new project might adapt it with some new ideas and new solutions.
There's one question from Sylvan Sturrell. There's a major constraint for digitalization in the agriculture and forestry sectors, the quality of communication infrastructures like GSM network, landlines in remote rural areas, which is often very poor. So how do we deal with this?
Yeah, this is an infrastructural issue, and it's no different than, for me, it's no different than roads or any other infrastructure. It requires investment and it requires policy coming from governments. And the demand to improve this isn't just coming from agriculture, it's coming from all of the industry sectors and from society generally. So I see this as something that it's going to happen, and we have to assume that this is outside of the control of individual advisors. But again, maybe there are new solutions. And these new solutions will maybe mean that we don't need to have that level of connectivity in the way that we talk about it at the moment. So we are always looking to use whatever is best out there.
By the way, we have also new solutions in answering questions, and for those questions we couldn't answer because of time, I have to tell that we have the opportunity to answer them directly to the people who asked them in the chat. So, Professor, could you please just go on with answering questions there, if that's possible?
Of course, yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was Tom Kelly, Professor, Director of Knowledge Transfer from the Irish Agriculture and Food Development Authority. Thank you very much.